They say the worst kind of theft is the one you never notice. Imagine coming home to find someone else already living your life. This is not a story about pickpockets or password breaches. This is a tale of identity theft carried out with eerie precision. A theft that begins with a knock on the wrong door and ends with an entire apartment rewritten in someone else's image. On a rainy Tuesday in autumn, Claire moved into 3B an alcove apartment in an aging brick building whose plaster whispered of better decades. She had the lease, the keys, the utility accounts in her name. She had framed photographs and a potted fern. For the first week, everything felt ordinary. Then the mail arrived addressed to another woman, Mara Ellison. Magazines, utility notices, a glossy wedding invitation. Claire returned the first batch, assuming an antiquated sorting error. The second batch arrived. So did Mara. The woman who appeared at Claire's door identified herself as a neighbor who had irregular hours and sometimes collected stray correspondence. She smiled, clasped Claire's hand with too much familiarity, and mentioned an upcoming gallery opening she had in her calendar, an event Claire had never heard of. The interaction lodged in Claire's mind like a splinter, small and irritating, but ultimately ignorable. It is step one in so many stories like this, the oddity you shrug off until the pattern is undeniable. Within days, the pattern emerged. Mara had Facebook photos that mirrored Claire's living room, avatars that used the exact potted fern as background, status updates about books Claire owned, in favorite coffee shops Claire frequented. An online shopping account in Mara Ellison's name used Claire's address for deliveries. But when Claire called the platforms to correct the mistake, she discovered accounts that already had months of activity messages exchanged, purchases tracked, preferences curated. Someone had built a life in parallel, a life that relied on the same place and the same small details that anchored Claire's own identity. This is the cunning of a doppelganger apartment. It is not enough to copy a name. The thief must reproduce the breadcrumbs that prove ownership in the modern world. Addresses, social media, utility records, even voicemail greetings. With these, they can claim loans, medical services, online subscriptions, and in a chilling escalation, the freedom to enter. When Claire's building superintendent later admitted he had handed a spare key to a woman who claimed to be herself, M. Ellison, same initials, same voice, the theft crossed from digital mimicry to physical trespass. How does something like this happen? Sometimes it begins with careful observation. A stranger watches the comings and goings, collects a discarded utility bill from the bin, scans a name from a delivery tag. In other cases, it starts with paperwork, a forged ID, a falsified apartment number, a manipulated digital archive. The doppelganger method blends social engineering with mundane bureaucratic loopholes. It exploits the assumption that official systems are airtight and that neighbors, landlords, and companies will trust a coherent story delivered with calm confidence. The consequences are quietly devastating. Credit accounts opened in a duplicate name can rack up debt. Medical records can be contaminated by someone else's treatments. Social bonds fray when friends receive two versions of you, and there is a more intangible loss, the feeling of being erased. Claire described mornings when mail arrived that did not belong to her, and evenings when a silhouette at her window felt like an accusation. Identity is not merely paperwork. It is the accumulation of small confirmations from the world. When those confirmations are stolen, you are left to prove your own existence. So what can be done? Vigilance, both personal and institutional, is essential. Shredding sensitive documents, securing mail, monitoring credit reports, and using multifactor authentication slow the opportunist. More important is skepticism of simplicity. Landlords verifying identities through direct contact, neighbors asking a question when something feels off. Systems must be designed with a respect for human fragility, recognizing that the cost of a misplaced key or a copied bill can be the collapse of someone's reality. Claire eventually reclaimed her apartment, but not without scars. The fern survived, the photographs remained. Yet every ring of the doorbell now tightened her chest. The doppelganger had left a residue no paperwork could clear. The knowledge that someone else could step into your life and, if not for stubborn certificates and inconvenient truths, might never have been stopped. Identity is our most basic property. To lose it is to be rendered invisible where you once were seen. Modern life offers convenience and with it, new avenues for theft. The lesson is not merely to guard our passwords, but to protect the small, irreplaceable proofs of ourselves, our address, our mail, our neighbor's trust. Because when a stranger begins living in your apartment, the theft is of more than things. It is of meaning, memory, and the ordinary certainties that make us who we are.